I didn't have permission to use that. I'll come to that. Hey, everybody. Today's 5 Watt Live is brought to you with the support of you, friends of 5 Watt on Patreon. I love that. It's like I'm playing air drums. You guys probably all just bob your heads out there. That's how I imagine it. Good to see some of the regulars. You know, given today's topic, I want to know how many of you have a YouTube channel. So put it in the chat, put it in the comments there. I'm curious to know how many folks, see, if I look at the chat, you guys make me laugh. That's the thing. I'm going to talk about laughing actually as a function of the channel. Hey, yeah, I'm crying here. You're killing me. Anyway, I'm killing me. Hey, everybody. So I've been thinking a lot about my consumption of social media lately. There's things I like about it, and there's lots of stuff that I really don't like about it. And thinking about this leaves me wondering how others, particularly musicians, friends of mine, you know, that I've made through the channel, use social media. And part of this was brought on by all of you, putting me over 250,000 subscribers. And I want to say how incredibly grateful I am to have met all of you here, to the extent that we get to hang out like this virtually, etc. And just, you know, thanks for being here. Thanks for subscribing. And thanks for sharing the journey. I was talking to Rick about hitting 250K, and he was congratulating me. And we were talking about remembering when he broke 1 million subscribers. And at the time we were both like, man, what do you do now? You know, I mean, like, where do you go from 1 million subscribers? And I remember, like, he literally he wasn't sure. And I think he's at 3.9 now. And his daughter recently, he was kind of saying this to her. He's like, well, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? She's like, well, maybe, you know, you could quit when you hit 10 million. So now the goal is 10 million. So if you haven't subscribed to Rick's channel, go subscribe to poor old Rick's channel. And thank you again for subscribing here. If you haven't subscribed here, come and subscribe. All right. So the answer, of course, like I said, you know, what do you do now? The answer is keep making stuff, keep paying attention to what people are reacting to, and then ultimately being willing to pivot, being willing to change what you do. This whole rash of YouTuber quitting videos. I haven't been doing this for 10 years. I've been doing it for like 4.5 years. But I have to say that there's a certain amount of YouTuber quitting where people kind of feel like, to me, they're kind of saying, you know, what I used to do doesn't work anymore, and I don't know what to do. And so you keep trying to do new things. So it's just like life of any other part of your life. You know, when I say at the end of the videos, you're all 5 Watt world, I just make the videos. I do that for 2 reasons. Celebrating the community that we have here. And also it reminds me every time I'm on camera, every time I'm going through a script, every time I'm finishing a script, that I'm making things for you. I don't make things for me. I make things for the audience, for people who are going to see the stuff. Really early in the channel, when I would make a video that I was really crazy excited about, I thought it was just the perfect video, and it would bomb. And I talked to Rick about it, and we would be like, oh, it's so good. And, you know, besides, if you skip over the part where if the title's not good and the thumbnail's not good, no one knows it's a good video because they're not going to click on it. But if you get past that, it's easy to make videos about things that you think are fascinating, but you haven't figured out a way to start that conversation with the audience. And that's a whole separate video that I could do about script writing and that, but some of that's in here too. So anyway, in the spirit of celebrating the community, in the spirit of my friends who are musicians and the way they do things that I like and the way they do things that I sometimes don't love, and they're confused by YouTube, for the small amount of success that I've had here, I wanted to do a live stream where we talk about it. All right. If you have Beve is not here. I'm going to pronounce that correctly. Beve is not here. He's away on holiday for a weekend, the romantic fool that he is, and more power to him. So everyone behave, or I'll make Victor or Otto or David a moderator. None of us want that to happen. So, okay, so be good. The playing in the intro, as I said, actually could be one of my rules. It's kind of implied if you're a musician and you have a channel, you want to give people something to listen to that gets them going. That's, as I said, the rhythm track that Rick built for his Stairway to Heaven Reimagined video. If you haven't seen that, go watch it sometime. It's absolutely amazing that he did that, and he got Eric Johnson to play on it. I mean, what a great concept of the video. Along with, you know, give them something to listen to. I always feel like my lighting, which I spend a lot of time on here, could, you know, use a little something. Oh no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. I got this really cool lighting thing. There we go. There. How distracting is that? Okay. Carl says he'll behave. That's one of you. Okay. All right. I'm going to come back to how many people had a YouTube channel. You can talk back, David. David, I was talking about you when I said, man, might make you a moderator. Okay. So that's the intro music. Remember, you can get a 5-watt World bus over at REVERB. If you're overseas, you want to get one, definitely reach out to David directly. Much better. I launched the top 10 SG players that changed the world of music. The of music is implied. People who get real upset with me for that title. I mean, it's a good title. It's a great title. Tim Pierce thought it was a great title. I can't deal with that. So whatever. Anyway, that launched this morning, and the video's doing pretty well. But if you haven't seen it, go check it out. If you're not I'm not an SG player either. I haven't really been ever, even though I had sort of an early pivotal memory that I share again in that video. Anyway, check for the links in the description for the t-shirts and hoodies and hats and mugs. We're going to talk about merch. We're going to talk about branding. Remember, if you have a question or a comment, you want to get my attention. See, I can't look at the comments. You guys are too distracting. You're too much fun. Yeah, I lost my place. So these are my 5 rules on this stuff. It's how I try to run the channel. And I'd like to hear what your rules, your to-dos and don'ts are. You know, things that musicians that you follow on YouTube, things that they do that you really like, and things that you do that sort of bug you. I'm going to touch on some of those. And I want to say that we're all just fine in our way. I found a niche with the histories, and it lets me then talk about things like this, or it lets me talk about, you know, records that were important to me. We all can then hopefully share that stuff. Anyway, these are the rules. We can all call out, you know, who our favorites are and what they do well. And, you know, if they don't listen, that's on them. We can try to help them. All right. I'm not sure I have a whole hour's worth of stuff. You guys never have a problem helping me fill. So we don't need to go the full hours if we don't have it. Let's see. Remember, question mark, space, if you want to ask me a question. And I will come back to those after I do a couple of these. How's that? So the number one rule of YouTube is be there. There's a guy, Sean Cannell, who has a channel called Think Media. And his tagline is, you just got to press record. And that's absolutely the minimum. I've actually met people who say, I have a YouTube channel. How many videos did you put up? I haven't put any videos up yet. I'm like, then you don't have a YouTube channel. You just have an account. And this is really why every musician should have a YouTube channel now. YouTube is the second largest search engine on the planet. I hear that stat. I hear it all the time. I don't know if you guys hear it all the time. It's the place people go to find kind of everything. How do I change the watch band on my watch? How do I do whatever? But also, I've heard of this musician that Perry's throwing at me, and I need to go listen to it again. I don't know if you guys follow, if you ever studied painting. But my dad was I'm going to talk more about it, but my dad was an art teacher and an art professor. So I grew up with art books in the house. And in France, in the 1800s, there was a thing called the Salon. And it was a committee. Yes, Sassy Cat, super chats always work for questions. You always throw money at me. I'm shameless. We're talking about that today. Anyway, the Salon was a committee that then put together this huge show painting, like thousands of pieces of work, all smashed together up on the wall, you know, really close, and getting good space in the Salon. But even getting a painting submitted and accepted to the Salon was a big deal. And the Impressionists like Monet and Gauguin and eventually later Van Gogh and those guys, I don't think Van Gogh ever got in the Salon. He wasn't successful in his lifetime at all. They were always jockeying for attention, for position. The salon these days is kind of YouTube. It's how do you get noticed? You got to be here. That's the number one rule. If people want to know who you are, they're going to go to YouTube. There seems to be, I was talking to my girlfriend at lunchtime about this. There seems to be something of a resentment among artists. And I think this has always been true. And it's not musicians. They don't have the market cornered on this at all. That they shouldn't have to work to sell their art. And I should add, like I said, it's always been true, but if you think about it, people like Vivaldi, went all the way from Italy to England to have a patron. Folks have always done what they have to do to try to make a living through their art. Steve Martin is famous for saying, when people ask him how to make it, he says, be so good that they can't ignore you, which always cracks me up because it's like, oh, is that all? I guess if you're Steve Martin, that works. But he's always done, and talk about pivot. I mean, the guy now is sort of more known as a writer than he is sort of a silly stand-up comedian, with an arrow through his head and pulling a tuna sandwich out of the front of his pants like he did on the Oscars one year. He just did wild stuff to get noticed. And I'm not telling people to do that. I'm just saying being noticed is a part of this, and YouTube is a part of that and being there. This is how you get to be found. Somebody might hear you, they might hear how great you are, but they're going to go looking on YouTube, like I said. So I would say YouTube should always be your number one platform, or at least at this moment in history. I don't know how long in the future you're watching this video. Maybe everything's been changed. But I would actually encourage you to add one other platform to it. And frankly, it's kind of hard not to do shorts. I'm looking at different ways to do shorts myself right now because I really haven't done it. And if you're doing shorts, maybe you do both Instagram and TikTok or something. What benefit that gives you is probably just pure exposure. And if you're doing music on YouTube, that could be really what's going on with that anyway. So it's, I added Instagram a couple of years ago to the mix. I had never done it before. And there's two things I love about it and a whole bunch of stuff I don't like about it. There's a part of me that thinks Instagram is the devil because it pulls you in so much and then it just throws ads at you. And I'm really clear with Instagram what I want to watch, see, and it generally ignores me about half the time. So I added Instagram to the mix, and I post 3 times a week. I try to post Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Sometimes I'll do a Saturday if I've got something out. And I have about 16,000 followers at this point, just under that, which is kind of a miracle because, what I put there is pretty much just what I'm playing right now. I try to take pretty pictures. I've been doing photography my whole life. Like I said, my dad was an art teacher. And that's something I've always done. So people, a few people have told me, I stopped for the picture, but I stayed for the writing. And though it's probably not my favorite thing to do on the channel, the writing is probably what I do best. And I would say that the other part of YouTube is people want to know a musician in a way, or a writer, or somebody who makes creative things that touch them. They want to have a sense of who they are. I'm going to talk a little bit about faceless channels later on, but I think if you're on YouTube, or I should say, if you're in the arts, people are trying to get a sense of who you are. And I think it's fascinating to see how willing or unwilling musicians are to sort of be known or share their life. I think that's always really fascinating anyway. So that's number one. Number one rule. Woody Allen always said 80% of success is just showing up. And I couldn't agree more. Number 2 is know the equation for content and support. And this is the one that I feel is hardest for people. So let me make it really clear. The formula is simple. And I didn't come up with this on my own. This is something that Rick and I talk about all the time. But it absolutely is something that I think people kind of get lost. The formula is simple. You give something of value away on social media. You then build a community around giving that stuff away, around sharing that knowledge or content or whatever it is you have to share. And then you give people a way to support you because you have given them this thing and that you continue to give them that thing. This is where I see a lot of musicians fall down on this, because they gain a small audience and then all of a sudden, all the stuff that they post is just how you can support them. So you'll see courses for sale or ads for shows. Ads for shows is mini rant here. Ads for shows is my number one waste of my time post. And I have a lot of friends who are musicians and I follow them on Instagram. But if they're posting about a show that they have in Tulsa, I'm not talking about Zach. I love Zach. He doesn't do this actually. But if he's got a show, like if somebody had a show on the other side of the country and they've got followers all over the world. Now, you might say, well, who knows who's going to be in Tulsa? Absolutely true. But I think we could guarantee that a lot of those people, the majority of those people, are not going to be in Tulsa. And when I see those kinds of posts all the time, I kind of go, you're not giving me something, you're selling me something. So that's, like I said, mini rant. That one is my toughest one. And the balance always has to be at least even, probably more like 2/3 or 3/4, giving something of value, and then let people have different ways to support you. I'm going to talk more about this actually in the next one, which is the next one, but let me finish this one off. So, or, they might talk about the book that just came out. And, books are tough for me because I'm a real bookish guy. So if you have a book that just came out, you're kind of saying, this is another way I'm sharing good things of value and you get to support me. That's a twofer, so that's a good thing. But it's a fine balance. And like I said, it needs to be, a percentage probably needs to be unique to your channel. You need to have a sense of your audience. There go the lights. See, that's the problem with gaff tape. I don't have a theater background. Anyway, no set design for me today. I'll work on that. I should have in this list be relatable. And maybe if I have time, I'll talk about there's two things that anybody who's successful on YouTube has. And they're the first thing I do whenever I do consulting with people. So there go the lights. Exactly. The cosmic joker at play, the big crunch. You guys you don't need me. I could just create something, put up the lights, put on a backing track from one of Rick's video. I have gaff tape. It's on the floor back there. Okay. All right. So you know what? I've been pulled in by the stream because of obvious. The lights have left the stream. You guys are too funny. Pedal Velcro. That's a good idea. It was taped to the light stand that does the purple. All right. See, I should have reached out to Otto. Otto is the real lighting guy. So. All right. This is interesting. Tyler, I'm putting you up, bud. Tyler's prophecy. No, Keith, formulas already mean you're not being you. Geez, man, capitalism sucks. No real art, just products. Okay, so I have an undergraduate degree in economics. I have a graduate degree in social sciences, really. It's mostly identity studies, how our identities are formulated. I would actually argue that all art that is meant to be consumed is a product, whether we like it or not. You might not like the language, and I'm cool with that. Call it anything you want. But if you're looking for people to support you, you are selling something. Like I said, call it anything you want. So, all right, let's see what else we got here. Oh, Lyle is here. Thanks, Lyle. Maggie, Scott. Scott's in the middle of a snowstorm up in Newfoundland. Oh, that's interesting. Scott makes an interesting point here. All right, so I'm going to digress because Scott brings up the point. I think people subscribe to you and your personality, not your content. So I was talking about how you really have to be a face. But there are two things whenever I do consulting with a YouTube channel, and I do it periodically, and I'm actually going to do a course around this theme. I've already got the script written. I hope to build it this spring sometime. About YouTube for musicians. How do you do YouTube for musicians? What does it take? What are the pieces of it? I think the thing that Scott is referring to is these two things. I tell people to make a list of the ways that they are unique. So what is it that you bring to the platform? And really, this isn't that hard. People are all unique, and sometimes it's a challenge for them to do that and be unique and be themselves. But that's why you make a list. You sit down and it's a homework assignment. You do that. So you make a list of the ways that you're unique, and then you make a list of the ways you're relatable. And I couldn't have done a better prop, Crash. That's completely relatable, that we're here and this is live. I'm going to talk about this later. The fact that I do a live stream and I'm laughing and all this kind of stuff is very different than what you get on a regular video of mine, where I'm doing my best Peter Coyote, Ken Burns impression, trying to do good voiceover work. And I think Scott's right, but I'll add that it's hopefully it's the content a little bit too. But if you don't come off as yourself, no one's going to stay. The thing I always quote is Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens always said, "No man is smart enough to lie." And I always hear, when I hear that, I hear, if you're not yourself, you're not going to be able to keep it up, and people see right through it. And no one's going to be interested in a conversation with somebody with an entity that's made up. Jim says, definitely don't like channels where I don't see the face, especially just like the ones with AI voiceovers. Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's funny because there's actually all this noise lately on channels where they're talking about how important authenticity is now. People that do the fade and they go, like that when they do the thing. Rhett does that. I told Rhett a long time ago, I said, no matter how slick you get, you should never stop doing that, because he's been doing it that way since the beginning. I don't actually have to go look at a recent video, see if he still does it. It's somebody reaching for the camera to turn the button off to stop the video. It's very relatable, and it's a great J-cut transition. So I think it's great. So Scott says, not a fan of shorts, but they work. It's not, I don't think it works for everybody. I think it's very interesting. I just want to see if we got a few more things here. I'm actually going to go back later and see how many YouTube people have YouTube channels. A lot of people agree that Instagram is the devil. I hope that doesn't hurt my Instagram algorithm. George Shepard, yes, I think I said that was the backing track from Rick's video on, I should have put him up on the screen, playing electric Fender 12 string. So, okay, all right, I got to do some. Art is free until the artist is dead. I don't agree. I think it's the opposite. I think the interaction I think the interaction between an artist and society is kind of the point. But like I said, I was raised by a painter, so go figure. Okay, Dan, we're off topic here, but how many tributes to guitarists you're already working on? Keith Richards, Paul McCartney, best to be first. I'm working on a double script right now, and I'll bet you guys can all guess who those two people are. And I'm hoping to use one of those when I'm away in April. But I'm going to talk about that. All right. So I think I'm caught up. Céline de Refusé, 1863. Sometimes you have to make your own Céline, Mr. Mont. Sorry, I'm going to pronounce your name in French if you're going to put French in the thing. Céline de Refusé. Refusé. My French is terrible. Okay, you guys are talking among yourselves. All right, so number 3. Give your supporters lots of different ways to show their support. And one of the easiest and first things that everybody really should do as part of a channel thing, and I didn't understand this. Okay, I didn't understand all of this, any of this really. Rick taught me a lot because I watched his channel grow much faster and explosive. And then frankly, working with my good friend, Zach Childs, on his channel, because he started after me, and he's still smaller, but I mean, Zach has a day job. This is my gig right now. I'm much older than Zachary. His name's Zach, actually. It's not Zachary. I always get that wrong. But you got to give your supporters lots of different ways to do it. Mugs, shirts. It's the easiest way to do it. You can actually put up, as soon as you get people watching, even before you get people watching, as soon as you pull your brand materials together, and I'm going to talk about branding next, you should be thinking about putting merch up. You never know how well a small audience can be incredibly niche down and incredibly fervent in their desire to hear your stuff, to see your music, to hear what you have to say about your music, about the experience of making it, being on the road, all those kinds of things. People, as I said, people want to know you. I didn't have a very big channel when I first contacted Zach, and he lives in Nashville. He was in Franklin, and good boy that he is. He went over to take his mom out for barbecue, and he was standing in a line, and the guy in front of him had a 5 Watt World t-shirt on. And I was probably 60, 70,000 at the time. So, I mean, maybe Nashville's a music town, so that was a thing. But I remember that story very clearly. And then I got Zach to launch a merch store before he was even monetized on YouTube. So there are these levels that you have to hit before you get monetized for ad revenue on YouTube. But you can put up a merch store at any time. And Zach's original goal was he stopped writing for Vintage Guitar Magazine. Actually, I think it overlapped for a little while. And his goal was to simply just make enough money on the side. Clearly now we know to buy Telecasters, but at the time he wanted to make enough money on the side to take the place of that writing, because he could have more control of how that worked. And so that he very quickly was able to do that. And I think that probably is a sad testament to how little money pays in the magazines these days. But so you want to put up merch, and you don't want to do what I did. You want to let the viewers decide what they want. When I put together the channel, when I'm going to talk about branding, I put together this whole idea of what colors would be part of the channel, what fonts I would use. I'm going to talk about branding, but I only put up navy blue shirts with white text. And it's not even the text that I use now. I think it was like New Times Roman. And that evolved a little bit and eventually got copyrighted, et cetera. But I only put up navy t-shirts. So if you didn't like navy t-shirts, you weren't going to buy one of my t-shirts. And it immediately became apparent. People were like, yeah, I like this t-shirt, but how about one in purple? How about I get this t-shirt? Or honestly, the number one selling t-shirt is black. It's a black t-shirt with that logo on it. And then, over time, two musicians, John Cordy and Jamie Dixon, the editor-in-chief at Guitarist Magazine, they both had kids like within a year of each other. So I had these made up. And that actually is a friend of 5 Watt, Chris's daughter. So we have 5 Watt onesies. There you go. With the logo. They should probably be 1 Watt onesies, but anyway. All right. Oh, it's time for the ad. It's time for the Patreon ad. And this is kind of all through here. I'm going to talk more about Patreon even in there, but it's really in that area of give people, actually, let me finish that. Give people a chance to show you how to make a living. So to wrap up that t-shirt thing, I use Spring. I don't get a kickback for telling you that. They're one of the biggest ones. They were the first ones to be integrated with YouTube, so that in this little strip under the video, they create, sell, and handle the customer service for my merch. They do it from multiple locations. Excuse me. And I think they've been great. I'm just big enough where they assign somebody to get with me every once in a while and say, hey, how about some new products? I have a new guy doing my graphics that I got from David Barber, great guy, and meeting with him tomorrow, but I'm going to put up some new things. So the hoodie got taken down because they stopped selling that hoodie, but they didn't tell me. So tomorrow I'll put the hoodie back up. But those are just a couple of examples. That, and then, like I said, Patreon, I'm going to talk about. To make a living on social media, I have no less than 10 different streams of income. I might do a whole video about this sometime where I talk to you about, what it is, but I can tell you that the ad revenue from YouTube is less than half of all the things that have to add up to keep me going here. Patreon, especially direct support with sometimes often $5 at a time, that's in the top 3 incomes that I have. It's the smallest one of the top 3. But I'm a big believer in the idea of Patreon, the implementation of Patreon, the idea that it was created by musicians looking for a way to have that done. Victor, I see you jumping in there. He says, a 5-watt world denim shirt would be nice. So these shirts I went looking for them on Amazon thinking at least I could do an affiliate link. This is a Levi's Barstow Western, I think they call it, but it's the Barstow, Barstow shirt. And my merch company can't get these to sell direct. And I'm not sure I'd want a logo on it anyway. But if you want to dress like 5-watt world, I could do a whole episode about why, but it's part of branding. So let me do my Patreon ad. So as I said, I created the channel and it's part of this branding thing. You know what? I don't need a separate ad. It's all in here today. This is kind of all through here. So let me just go to there. Number 4 is branding. There. You want to show your audience. And this is funny because I get a lot of pushback from people where they're like, oh, I don't want to have color palettes and do all that kind of stuff. This is what I think it is. It's showing your audience respect by being clear about what you're about. Make it easy for them to find you. Make it easy for them to recognize you. Make your mission simple, and your mission and your message simple and recognizable. And then do these things to help you do that. So choose a color palette. Obviously, I went with a white and blue palette really early. And then the fans told me to do something else. And then, I used TrueFire and this backdrop is TrueFire purple. And I actually kind of started stretching out and got some purple shirts. I don't own a lot of 5-watt world merch, but I have these purple shirts that I wear when I'm working and stuff. And that's mostly when I wear these things. If you ever come across me in the world, I do not wear a blue jeans shirt every day anymore. And that's maybe another whole mental health video thing. But I did decide in the when I made the very first video that I would have a uniform for videos because I didn't want, what I wore to be distracting from what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be about the content. It's supposed to be about what the message and the story. It's supposed to be the story. So the little bit that I am on screen, is distracting enough. My facial hair. I used to joke that if you had to talk to me about my facial hair, you weren't paying attention and I'd ban you from the channel. I don't think I ever did that. Or I let people come back. Anyway, you want to show your audience respect by being clear. So choose your time, spend your time. Last week, I want to add, never stop learning. Last week, I went out and signed up for Skillshare again. I had used them as a sponsor one time. They kind of were in my business too much. And so we haven't worked together for a long time, but I went over and I signed up again. It's $29 a month. If you've never signed up before, it's free for a month. You can watch a ton of stuff in a month. And I wanted to go retake Marquez Brownlee, who was a tech YouTuber with 15 million subscribers. And a smaller YouTuber who actually has multiple channels, and she's kind of looked around. Her name is Sorella Moore. But I hit 250,000 subscribers, and I thought it'd be a good time to do some planning, but also sort of to reevaluate, pivot points and what it is I'm going to do this in the next few years. And so that's where that was. I always think that everybody knows this story, and but I still get this question all the time. So I'm going to briefly, in the context of branding, I'm going to talk about how I named the channel and why. Also the tagline, because people question that all the time because they're watching a history video and they don't know what that's about. So I think everybody's heard this, like I said, but just because I keep getting the question. Mr. Dooley's got a top chat there. He says, thanks for being authentic. I can tell you actually dig having this community guitarist. Oh, I totally do. I really enjoy it. And I've talked to Keith on the phone on a video chat before, which I do with people periodically. If it's too much back and forth, I'll just get on a call with you. It's just that. And as I said before, at the $50 level, I do monthly calls with a lot of those guys if they have time to do it. So, all right. So anyway, I knew I wanted to create a community. So I was looking for a good word for that. And that's how I settled on world. And I was searching channel names. The way you do this is you come up with a channel name possibility and you just keep searching. And I remember my favorite guitar color at the time was like a transparent blue, indigo blue, and tortoise. And so I had this early idea that I was going to call the channel Indigo and Tortoise. But if you Google Indigo and Tortoise on YouTube, you find all of these videos of indigo snakes trying to eat tortoises. It wasn't my message. That's not what I wanted to do. So I moved away and we went 5 watts. And 5 watts was from when I was building 5-watt amplifiers with Dan Lurie at FYD, and realizing for me that they were enough. And I owned a couple of Champs, and then we used the Champ power section and we put different preamps on the front. We made a video. We made a Silver Jubilee, a Marshall Silver Jubilee. We built, I have a TMB Champ in the basement. I had it on my Instagram account last week. And what else did we make? Oh, we made an ODS. We made an overdrive special 5-watter that Dan still has. I think he actually runs a 5881 because he changed the output transfer. He keeps changing that amp. Some of these things went back to him at some point. He bought me out on some of the amp projects, but I thought that 5 watts were enough. So 5 watts became the symbol for me of what's enough. And so putting that in there was, along with my desire to build a community, became 5-watt world. And then I drew the logo. I've said this before. My dad, let me see, I can put this here, put this up. So I drew the logo. I drew the 5, the tube. It's a 6v6, obviously, because it's a 5-watt world, not a 6L6 8-watt world, right, Lyle? Depending on the output transformer. My dad was a high school art teacher, as I said, and then a college professor. So, I can't throw a football for crap, but I can draw, as you would guess. So the shirt I talked about already. I just wanted it to be, and you know what? This is the one. I've had the same shirt. I don't wear it unless I'm filming. I pulled it out today. I'm actually trying to break in another one and get it to this level. This one's getting a little faded. So if you're trying to get a really nice saturated blue on camera, which is what I'm always trying to do, along with the tortoiseshell glasses, if you move the saturation slider in your editing, it kind of pulls everything, kind of comes forward, and you get a really nice 3D thing. You might have noticed over the years that Rick has slowly gotten pulled over to wearing denim. It's just too good on camera to not kind of go this way. But by having it always the same on camera, it kind of becomes part of your brand. And everybody is talking about, people are talking about, having a shirt as a 5-watt world thing. And I do have like 6 of them, and it's what I wear when I work. And I'm mostly sitting here working most days. I don't mean to make this sound easy or fast. I spent probably a couple months thinking about it, and it was a good way to procrastinate actually making videos at the beginning. But if you ever have had to name your band or an album, titling things is hard. And there's a general sense in YouTube now that you could actually, the title, I could do a whole video about this, the titling, and I will in the course, but titling videos is, a title on a video is the beginning of a conversation. So, say you want to have a conversation with somebody that you've never met, and they look interesting, and you're trying to think of how to start the conversation. Starting a conversation is what the title of the video is. So the thumbnail, the image on the thumbnail, and I apologize for the bad acting. Somebody pointed out my acting, look on the thumbnail today. I think people are confused about it. So I was trying to capture that. Anyway, I had my big old phone that I use as a teleprompter. Titling things is tough. Naming things is hard. And it's the reason it's so important when you're building a YouTube channel or you're building thumbnails or et cetera. And it's interesting. It's fascinating. I used to be a university registrar, and it was our office that processed name changes. And I did a whole project actually where we let people change their names without legally changing their names for a whole bunch of reasons. That's another whole thing that really isn't germane to the channel. But I've always understood that names were really important, that that naming things. And so working on slides and coming up with names for slide videos and stuff is a big part of that. And you know what? It's really sad that I have not remade my trailer, my channel trailer, because really I would tell somebody else they should redo a channel trailer every year. Because the guy without a beard that does the channel trailer is not the same guy as I am now. Okay. Carl Sunfield says he doesn't watch my videos for the acting. That's good. That's a good call, Carl. All right, number 5, the last one here. You got to commit to making regular content. I think it's easy to get started. When I do consulting with people, or people ask me how to get moving in YouTube, I tell them the first thing they should do is sit down and make a list of 100 ideas for videos. And they go like 100. And I'm like, well, how many videos do you think you're gonna make? I don't know, like 2 a week. Like that's 1 year's worth. What are you gonna do then? 100. Think of 100. I mean, boy, if you don't have 100 ideas, I've been doing this for 4.5, 5 years. I still have a spreadsheet with 125 video ideas. They're not all this equally good. They're not all going to get made probably, but I'll periodically ask friends of mine to look at that spreadsheet and rank them. And I have to tell you that these top 10 blank guitar that changed the world video ideas were ones that people like Zach and a friend of mine at Line 6 Yamaha, they put at the top of their list. They're like, wow, that's a 5. I want to know that. I want to hear people talk and debate that. So, although I take a lot of grief about those, but I only recently, in the last like 3 or 4 months, settled into doing these weekly live streams. Somebody put in the comments earlier, in the chat earlier, it's a twofer, because I released this morning. It used to be that if I was on schedule, I would release every Thursday morning. And if you're on Patreon, you'd actually, the $10 or more, you'd actually see them Wednesday night. And the holidays and stuff kind of kick the crap, or some of the bigger videos really just kind of, and I try not to worry too much about slipping the timeline. And I'll tell you, it takes me most of the day to get this together to do a live like this. I'm going to write, I have to pull sometimes a lot more visuals together. But doing these lives are really important. And I talked about it earlier. I think it's really important that people have a sense of who you are, that you're a real person. It's really funny because Rick's channel is so big. I went to see him at a show in New York, and I did a meetup in New York where we had like 25 or 30 people that came to a bar that was near the theater where Rick was, where we were staying in a hotel. It was all like within 2 blocks. It was great. And, but when people run into Rick and they get a chance to talk to him for a few minutes, he's just the same. He's exactly the same. For good or ill, he's just like we all are. We're only this smart. It's like I'm always quoting John from Cincinnati. Some things I know, some things I don't. You don't. Like I said, no one's smart enough to lie. You can't be more than you are. You can't be less than you are. So just be comfortable, be unique, etc. Being live is also a great reminder who I do this for. This is all for you. I spend all Thursday thinking about something, and usually the whole week, but today was kind of coming to the pitch, about what to talk about today and what you might want to talk about. So I'm gonna be, like I said, I'm gonna be away during April. I've always wanted a gig where I could write and work from someplace else part of the year. It's not like seasonal affect so much as it is my desire to work on my foreign language skills and stuff, which has always been a hobby of mine. So I'm going to be someplace else in April, and maybe later we'll see how much I'm willing to share. If you guys might even be out there, maybe I need to do a meetup in this city that I'm going to. Anyway, but I am going to do it, and I'm going to figure out a way. When I look for a place to stay, I was looking for a place that had good enough Wi-Fi or a local workspace where I could still do live streams. I won't take all this stuff with me. Maybe just that little star guy so we can fall over in the middle of it. But I'll still be doing lives on Thursdays. I'm working on the details. And like I said before, I laugh here. It's in my notes today. I laugh here. It's a different person. It's the same guy. It's a different part of the guy that does those voiceover things. My full videos, like I said, come out on Thursdays, and I filmed it takes about 2 weeks. I write a script, I edit it. Ideally, I film first thing Monday morning. I'm much better at doing teleprompter work first thing in the morning. Then I edit it on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, building the B-roll over the visuals, pulling things from the internet that I hadn't pulled already. And then I put it out, like I said, on Thursday mornings, and then the live. Some channels do live streams. Some do interviews. Others only do edited content. I think one of the most interesting formats to me is the faceless one, even though I really don't think it's a thing that would work for artists. You see some channels that are they're really working on the strength of their writing, which is kind of amazing to me, and the strength of their visuals that don't include them, that don't include, and looking at someone, when you talk about thumbnails, we are naturally coded to look right at the camera. And if somebody's looking out of a thumbnail at us, we're going to look at them. It's going to pull our eyes. Any of these formats can work, and you can make them work. And I would say, go gather the best information you can by watching the people you like. If you're a musician, talk to the camera, be there for people. They want to know who you are. That's my 5 things. So let me go back. I've got a little bit of time here. Let me go back. Let's see. I always, when I reference that John from Cincinnati quote, which the only quote I can do from that show, I love that show. That's the one. I actually have that clip in, I don't even remember one of my videos. I found a clip of it online where he's driving in the van. And one of the many times he says, some things I know and some things I don't. Matt Two Hats says in a long comment here, Keith, is YouTube all consuming? Do ideas keep you up at night? How do you find balance? Where'd you get an idea to balance? I should have Roman, my girlfriend, do a stream sometime. Do you have any recommendations for people who can only do YouTube part-time for financial reasons? Yeah, sure. So let's touch on those. Is it all consuming? I've always been a person that struggles with not thinking about work. It's one of the reasons I'm going to try to do that month in a different space so that I have some work done in advance and have some downtime and have beautiful things to look at that aren't my usual things. I think that's an important part of this. Sorry, what else we got here? They don't keep me up at night. Other things keep me up at night. Something I'm researching. David Barber said to me the other day, are you always researching something to buy? Which, as a past economics major, I found an absolutely fascinating question. And I'm still wrestling with it. My current thing is I'm going to buy a wristwatch so I don't carry my phone around all the time, digital minimalism wise, but I can't do that without being obsessive about the watch research, which led to the video I did last week, because there are so many good watch collecting channels and they wrestle with a lot of issues about collecting, including like a lot of stuff that's transferable, as I said last week, to what we do with our guitars. And you can, I think the main thing I could say for somebody who's going to do it on the side is you don't have to do 2 videos a week. You don't have to do 1 video a week. If you produce good content on a regular schedule, and by regular, I mean like something every couple of weeks, something once a month. There are huge channels that do these really fancy videos. They do them once a month. There's any number of those channels that do that. Carl says, what editor do I use? I use Final Cut Pro. I find that almost all YouTubers use Final Cut Pro. And because of that, when they're sharing within teams and stuff, it just seems easier to use than the other choices. Although I think John uses a free one. DaVinci, I think he uses. John Cordy. Okay. You guys are talking. Not WKRP in Cincinnati. There was a show. There's a really weird, I think it was just 1 season called John from Cincinnati. So go look it up. Go dig it up on YouTube. Michael Easter's guessing Italy. Good guess, but no. Lyle. So Lyle is working. You're the best, Lyle. That's great. Yeah, Deadwood was great, but I was so Psionic Audio, but I was so disappointed in the movie. It was like just yet another episode. They didn't tell us anything new about the characters, which is the whole point of having a movie, in my opinion. So, yeah, thanks, Kurt. Right. It was an HBO one season run in 2007. Wow. Thanks, Sam. Thanks for doing the homework. Okay. I'm out of things to say. I'm looking for questions here. And as I said, afterwards, I am going to go back and look at how many of you have YouTube channels. If you have a YouTube channel and you have questions, and this is true anyway, if you have questions, you can always reach out. Reach out with questions directly to me. You can reach me at 5wattworld@gmail.com. If you see my answers getting shorter, I'm usually very honest about it. If it feels like it goes too long, or like I said, I'm likely to jump on a phone call with you if it's a topic like we're trying to figure out what amp you need, and I'll give you advice, and Lyle will tell you that I'm wrong. That's a joke about AC10 C1s, but Lyle's corrected me on that. So, and he does know more than me. Thanks, Veronica. Veronica says the logo is perfect. Thanks. Tyler says, journalism taught me to title things easily. Any situation of any magnitude can be broken down into 5-sentence pyramid of importance, from most to least. One of the interesting things was I saw somebody on YouTube, I can't remember who it is right now, that I respect, but they were talking about how education channels can get away with longer titles than entertainment channels, which I thought was really interesting. There's also a guy, Matt Koval, who has a channel. I'm not going to remember Matt's channel name now, and it's not that big yet. He was a big YouTuber. Then he went to work for YouTube. It's great advice. And he basically did a video that Rick sent me on how many years a typical YouTube entertainment channel lasts versus how many years an education channel lasts. We're back to, like getting to 10 million subscribers for Rick, I guess. Hey, Eric, talk about the meetup. I met Eric in New York. Great to have you here for one of the lives. Okay, Lyle, you won't believe this one simple trick for choosing a title. Okay, now you got to give over. I'm gonna scroll back down to the bottom. And while we're thinking about that, and yes, Carl, I think I was saying that a 6L6 produces more. It's a 6V6 tube in the thing, and really calling it 5 watts is a generalization. Lyle would be quick to point out that has everything to do with the output transformer and how much voltage the tube is getting. And frankly, 5 watts is peak, so it's dimed. So yeah, Jeff's absolutely correct. This shirt has faded. I don't know. Is that a comment about me? I've faded? What are you saying, Jeff? Thanks, buddy. Thanks for being here. I have a Mr. Rogers sweater. It's my Mr. Rogers sweater. I like it when people kind of are willing to betray how old they are. No, it's not a 6L6. It's Carl. It's not tall enough to be a 6L6. And 5 watts is enough. Easter Sunday is correct. This is an interesting point, Victor. People say to me often, it's amazing that you found, because I had this career where I was an administrator and I wore, white button downs for 20, 35 years, 25, 35, long time. That's been a long time, years with rep ties and stuff. As a matter of fact, at my retirement party, I said, in college, I always just wanted, son of an art teacher, I always just wanted a job where I didn't have to wear a tie. And I failed miserably at that career-wise. But the joke is people say, it's great you found something that you really love. You get to do something you really love. And I'm like, well, did you like school? Yeah, I loved school. Did you like writing term papers? No, I didn't like writing term papers. Writing is probably the thing I do best, and it's not my favorite thing to do. This is my favorite thing to do, not the lives. This can make me sweat and stuff, but actually the interaction with the community is my favorite thing to do by far. The fact that 5 watt is a world is my favorite thing about doing the channel. And it's funny, I was always known for as a really analytical guy. And I had a staff member say to me once, we were doing an exercise and we had these cards and we were supposed to order them in the order of how important they were to us. One of the cards was like relationships, and one of the cards was analysis. And I put the relationship card on top. And it was funny because she was very outspoken and hadn't been on the staff very long. So she's sitting next to me. She looks over at my stuff and she goes, why'd you put that on top? Analysis. You're all about the analysis. And I said, if it wasn't for the relationships, I wouldn't care about the analysis at all. It was really trying to figure out ways to help the students that made me go. So, okay. This is my last pulling this up. And before we go to Lyle's comment, your channel is dedicated to good history with great research. Thank you. Watching from Wayne County, New York. I am from Lyons, New York. I am born and bred in Wayne County. My family, this Dutch boy that sits in front of you, is originally from the Clifton Springs, Phelps, Newark area. And then I grew up in the very Italian corner of Wayne County that was Lyons and Clyde, where the home of Jim Boeheim, which is maybe all reasons I've been cordoned off here in Syracuse again now. I'm going to go to the end. Did Lyle give us the answer to the question? It's funny, Victor, I have some 6v6s that are branded, old ones that are branded as Ford or GM, because they were tubes that were produced by RCA for radios before transistors were tubes, and they were in your car and they'd come shake loose. And some of those really are some of the best sounding 6v6s. Dan Lurie has a favorite one for Champs that just is really good. There's no secret. It's just a joke. All right, Lyle, we'll have to talk more. David Cromwell wants to know, can I pronounce Van Gogh the way a Dutch person would? That's as close as I can get. My Dutch is really terrible. But I do speak a little bit. And David knows that, actually. All right. Hey, you guys have been great. It is 4:58. I feel dinner coming on here. I need to get to it. Hey, if you have questions about YouTube and you've got a channel and you could use some pointers, go ahead and reach out. As I said, I do have like all these different streams of income. I do this like consulting thing very rarely. I did it with a jazz guitar channel a couple of years ago. And I joked that if I could help a jazz guitar channel be successful on YouTube, I could do anything, because jazz is usually the death, word for a channel. But anyway, I do it rarely, but I do it sometimes. I'm fascinated by anybody who's doing an entrepreneurial world. I ordered a watch strap from a guy and found out that the company was based, called Strapco is the company, and they're based up in Champlain, New York. The closest restaurant, probably real restaurant or place to stay, hotel to Champlain, New York, is over in Vermont, over in North Harrow in the islands at the top of Lake Champlain. So I reached out to the guy. I'm fascinated by anybody who, let me get this off here. How do I get this off here, David? There we go. I'm fascinated by anybody who can kind of pull their life into a business, be authentic, do it well. And that's the ultimate secret to and rule for YouTube. All right. So thanks, everybody. Hit the like button on your way out. Remember to go to the description. There are links there for Patreon and for TrueFire. And I know we all wish Beve well, wherever he is, in a romantic corner of the world. And until next time, this is me, Keith Williams. Thanks for being a part of the 5 Watt world. I'm going to let Rick's backing track, as I do, play us out.
Here we go.